With Ruben Amorim, they're getting adrenaline. They're getting belief. They've got someone who will go into that dressing room and he will say, you can win.
This is at the lowest. They're at the lowest point now, with lowest quality group of players they've had ever in the history of the Premier League.
If those guys have advocated for a signing on the basis of solely for Ten Hag, and then Ten Hag gets taken out 4 months later, these guys are going to lose their jobs pretty quick.
They've learned that they needed to get Dan Ashworth in earlier, and Dan Ashworth is now making more.
That's Henry, I'm sorry, I don't believe that.
Whether the infrastructure there was not, he was left to get on with it, right? And nothing has moved forward.
No, I agree
in
with
that time.
that.
There's no style of play. There's no players that he's improved. And there's no one that's come in and gone, we want to take those.
And this is, as a player, did you ever look at yourself after a manager had gone?
Absolutely.
He had plenty of opportunities to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
He did nothing but look at himself.
Don't entertain it.
18.
Welcome to 3 Up Front. Erik Ten Hag has been sacked, with United in 14th place, 11 points from 9 games and only 8 goals scored. He spent more than £500 million on players and has 1 League Cup and 1 FA Cup to speak of. So where do Manchester United go from here? To discuss all of this, I'm with my crew, my 3 Up Front, our 3 Up Front, which is now 4 Up Front. Graham Souness, Troy Deeney, and Henry Winter, the newest addition. Given the fact that Ten Hag is now gone, we're now hearing that the appointment that's being mooted and lauded and applauded through the media in some respects of Ruben Amorim from Sporting Lisbon is pretty much done or imminent. What do we think United are getting?
With Ruben Amorim, they're getting adrenaline. They're getting belief. They're getting an organiser. They're getting someone with a self-belief. They've got someone who will go into that dressing room and he will say, you can win. Press high, work hard. There's a huge work ethic to his team. What's going to be interesting with that squad is that he likes to play a 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1. And it'd be interesting to see, have they got the wing backs? You know, there've been times when they've struggled to get 2 centre-halves out, let alone 3. So obviously there's going to be a lot of work that's going to be needed to be done on the squad, moving Anthony out on loan, bringing players in. They're already talking about Victor Gyökeres, who obviously did so well for him at Sporting, former Coventry player. So again, the squad will be enhanced. But in terms of the type of manager, 39 years old, 2 Portuguese titles, you know, philosophy, confidence. He'll bring a bit of swagger back.
It's a good appointment because it works. Because he's got it. He's got that thing that you're looking for, the X factor. But he's going to have to make loads of mistakes between now and Jan to fix it. And will he be afforded the time and the grace of the players that are there to really impact it in January? Because they're going to have to get rid of 5 or 6 just to play how he wants to play.
But
I would say
those players have got to raise their game because they could be absolutely underperforming.
But can they?
But I mean, if they, they can't sort of now blame everything on Ten Hag. Not that they were doing that publicly, but they've absolutely got to respond to them.
Surely, God, there's no point him coming in if they can't play the way he wants them to play.
That's my point.
Then he's going to find a challenge straight away.
His job is to get the best out, whatever system that may be, out of this group of players. He's walking into what is a very, very difficult job. I'm looking at Man United since INEOS came in, and it's screaming at me, they don't really get football. Let me tell you why. I think they've now got their footballing people in charge, Dan Ashworth and
Jason Wilcox.
Yeah. I can't believe for a minute they don't have an input on the 3 players assigned in the summer. Ugarte.
Yeah, they should have, shouldn't they?
De Ligt, Xerxes.
Yeah.
So if that's them thinking these players are going to be good enough for Man United, they're wrong. And I think where they went wrong big time as well is during close season when it was public knowledge they were out looking for a new manager, interviewing new managers. Did they have any thought what that was going to do for Ten Hag's position in the dressing room? They cut his legs off. And then they turned around, maybe feeling guilty about going out and speaking to several managers, coaches. Oh, to placate him, we'll give him another year's contract. Me as a player, I'm thinking,
no, he's
not here very long.
I'm not going to dispute that version of events. But the point is they alighted upon Ten Hag for reasons. They reviewed Ten Hag. They reviewed the principles of what he was and wasn't doing. And they decided to give him a new contract, which I find unfathomable. If it were me, I'd have sat there and gone, here's the thing. I didn't employ you. I'm reticent, but I'm prepared to go with you for the rest of your contract. because you've got a year left. And if we start moving in the right direction under us as a new
For
environment,
what reason did they pay out? Give him another year.
because he must have convinced them. The point is, I'm making in a long-winded way, is it was suggested that they did it out of guilt or some sort of commercial response to
It was
the
technically in the
indignation.
contract anyway. That
Did they have an
just,
option?
Yeah.
They triggered the option,
Yeah.
but they didn't have to,
Yeah.
right? And if I was the owner of Man United and I was sat there with a manager that I wasn't entirely certain of, I'd say, here's the thing. I'm not sure about where we're going because we finished 8th in the league.
Mm-hmm.
We've won an FA Cup, fantastic. So you've given me pause to thought. And I'd like it to be successful. And I'd like you to be successful with us. So I'm going to give you this opportunity to fulfill your contract as it currently stands. To give them a new contract means that they were committed to Ten Hag for whatever reasons.
But then they gave him £200 million. I take your point about the players, and are those players on INEOS? But they were very much Ten Hag's recruits, those 200.
But then what have they learned then? What have they learned? That's my point. The people who are now making football decisions, what have they learned?
They've learned that they needed to get Dan Ashworth in earlier, and Dan Ashworth is now making.
But
more.
That's
allowed
Henry,
200 million to be
I'm
spent.
sorry, I don't believe that. If you live in the La La Land, that Dan Ashworth and the CEO at Man City that might have been working out notice weren't in direct communication, with due respect, with the club that they were going to be working for and imparting wisdom, then you're naive, because they would have been. Now, whether that puts the conversation into a slightly fractious debate about how that actually works, there's no way that those players weren't signed or were signed, more to the point, without the intellectual capital of those that were coming in.
Correct.
Right. Now, if those guys have advocated for us signing these players on the basis of solely for Ten Hag, and then Ten Hag gets taken out 4 months later, those guys are going to lose their jobs pretty quick, because Jim Ratcliffe is going to look at those guys and go, surely these signings were made in perpetuity. There was always a risk that Ten Hag was going to be unsuccessful. And if those signings aren't signed in perpetuity, then what are Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox and the other guys doing, advocating for some of these signatures?
That's my point. Now, the football decision makers,
One way or t'other.
have had one summer, and look what they've done with it.
But sorry,
That's
how
Man
much
United.
of that is at Dan Ashworth's door, and how much of that is
has
that
to-
they have
has to
slightly
be at Dan
naively?
Ashworth's door.
No, but a lot of these recruits were on the say-so or the nod of Erik Ten Hag.
All right. If he doesn't have 100% say, Dan Ashworth, he's got an input, and that's your argument.
Of course
he must
it
have
is.
had an input.
I mean, I have to say that in 10 lifetimes, I will never accumulate as much wealth and as much commercial acumen as Jim Ratcliffe. But when I listened to his interview during the summer with Bloomberg, I came away feeling significantly underwhelmed with the intellectual capital that he was deploying to Manchester United and to the idea of what Ten Hag wasn't, because everybody, and I know it's easy to be negative, because if you get it wrong, everyone forgets because the guy wins. If you get it right, then you get your point proven, right? Everybody, me and him 2.5 years ago, said, don't like the cut of Ten Hag's jib, not a leader.
No.
I made the observation about big suit and small man, right? Not because of his suit's fitting, but because of the stature of the fella. I said in the summer, not because I'm some sort of voyeur or ability to or soothsayer for the future, that this guy won't last till Christmas. And so it's proven to be the case. Now, I can't believe that the so-called intellectual capital that sits within Jim Ratcliffe's ear has more insight than someone like me does. So decisions are being made for various reasons. And the interesting thing about this fella, this new fella, Amorim, is he was photobombing football clubs for jobs in the summer, at West Ham. And
He had to
Liverpool.
apologise for the sporting.
And had to apologise.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And the one thing I'd like to suggest that his biggest challenge is not his playing squad. It's like the old expression of experience. You can't buy it, you can't borrow it, you can't pretend to have it. You can't replicate penalty shootouts on a training ground, and you cannot prepare to be the Man United manager. Managing Sporting and getting 27 points out of 9 games, scoring 30 goals and conceding 2, and being effective in European competition against some of the lesser opposition in Europe is not the same as this goldfish bowl he's walking into now. And this is the key component for me.
Job.
He will be backing himself
Of course.
to fly in there, to look at Carrington and think, I can get this lot to do better.
I think they've got to be better than what they've been showing.
Otherwise, what's the
how
purpose
much
of it?
better?
From the small bit that I know firsthand, that you just touched on it there with Carrington, he has to get that place united again.
Yeah.
As you know as well as I do, it was completely segregated. Listen, where do you start? You're walking in on day one, you're a manager. Where do you start?
What, you're saying they're cliques there?
I don't want to get people in trouble.
You've
but
got players that
we
are
went
doing
there.
that. Ain't my fault. It's
no,
his.
I'm on about something more bigger than that. When Sir Alex Ferguson was there, it was all of us are in. 23s are in there. When Erik Ten Hag was there, it's first team, all you lot over there.
I don't.
And that's not my opinion. That's factual.
Well, in
but I
terms
don't
of the
think that's
bomb
gonna make
squad,
a
In terms of 23s over there, I only want these amount of people with me, and he made it very segregated. So what you have to do is obviously bring that back together, make everyone feel that they're part of it. But now you're walking in on day one, you're the manager. Where do you start? Where do you start? If you're we've got the Man United job now. Where's your point of start?
he's got to sort Bruno Fernandes out. He's got to sort the
And what-
captaincy out
and
because of
what
the
way?
leadership. And
How do
also,
you- how
tactically,
do you
you
see
guys would
Bruno?
know more than me. Can you fit Bruno Fernandes in a 3-4-3? Particularly if you've got a sort of
Bruno-
double pivot there. You've got two
I'll
wing backs
make it-
and then you've
Bruno
got three.
could play at Man City. Bruno could play at Liverpool. He's a talented boy, but could you rely on him?
Out
I'm
of
not sure.
possession, you can't.
No. Well, you can't play the high pressing that
Yeah, that's
you
what I'm
mentioned
saying,
early on. How'd you get a tune out of Rashford? He looks like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders.
But this idea of the translation again of a lesser league manager coming into the Premier League, do you think that and of course then what they tend to do is they go back and buy the players from these football clubs, which we've seen with Ten Hag, his experience of the players that he's brought in have been ones that he's worked with previously. Do we think on the balance of probability that this is a wise decision, not to taking out of Ten Hag? That was inevitability.
Jose Mourinho came from a similar league. Well, he came from that league.
Yeah, but
Okay,
they
he
just-
just
but
won
they
the
just won
Champions
Champions
League.
League.
Absolutely, I buy that. But he did it with the Portuguese team.
But they'd won the
Porto.
Champions League.
Yeah.
So he was
And
he
he came to
dominated Europe.
Chelsea when Ranieri had finished second.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
And
I,
he can-
I wouldn't
and signed-
completely
and
destroy
signed
the
Drogba.
Portuguese league.
But the worry for me is what is the plan moving forward from a recruitment point of view. So if they go and get Gokaras, the striker who was at Coventry, personally,
Really?
I personally think the guy's a nice kid. He's having a good spell of form. The way to play for Man United, that won't translate. That would be a bad situation. I'm more than happy to be proved wrong, by the way. But just my eye test, I don't see him being able to score the goals that get Man U to where they're at. So I would like them to go, right, you're the manager or you're the coach, deal with that. But this is what Man United's going to look like. Dare I say it, what Brighton do, what City do, what Liverpool do. But
It
depends on
should
manager.
be what young and hungry in terms of their
It
crew.
should-
Stronger
what-
characters,
whatever you-
responsibility takers,
whatever you
like
want it
Graham's
to
always
be,
talking about.
do that. Because you just look here, Anthony, they all got these guys from Ajax. Did you see an Ajax style of play with Anthony, Martinez, Onana, De Ligt, and Mazzarri? Did you see an Ajax style of play?
I didn't see any style of play.
That's what I mean. So you want to go, what is this? Who are we? What do we do? If we manager gets sacked in 6 months, we're not just spent 200 million on wasting our time.
You don't get a job as a manager. Very, very rarely. Slot got one. You don't
Yeah.
get a job because things are going well at a football club.
Absolutely.
Now, I would suggest he's walked into him being 39 years old.
Yeah.
He was an intern under Jose Mourinho at Manchester United.
So he might be super talented. He might be great at his job, but he's walking into a club that needs from the ground up building again. It just depends what that journey looks like.
Can I ask you a question on that? Sorry to talk about. From an ownership point of view, what would you be looking at in this guy that says, right, he can take everything that Graham said, build this from scratch, moving
Well,
forward?
he'd have told me all this. I don't need to tell him what the challenges are. He'd have told me. And then he'd have told me what the solutions were. Otherwise, he's a problem for me and not a solution. So I'm assuming that all of these things have been addressed. All the things that we're ruminating about the style of play and the identity of the football club and how he's going to deal with the challenges, all of those would have been presented to me. Otherwise, why the fuck am I paying £10 million to get him out of a contract and God knows whatever else he wants in his
How
own
much
salary?
can he really know about Man United?
Well, he should know enough to convince me that he's worthy of me taking him
He
into
can
the
watch
biggest
him
job in
videos,
football.
but he can't get inside the heads. He's not worked with these guys. This Man United
But you
group
know
of
what you're
players
looking at. You can see it.
have been so weak mentally.
But you can see it. But you said a moment ago, I don't know, if you were presented 17 years ago with this conundrum, 18 years ago when you left Newcastle and you were still a football manager and still wanted to be one, looking at this Manchester United team, looking at the challenges, looking at what we criticised Ten Hag for his inability to achieve, you're a football manager, you've managed some of the biggest clubs in the world, or certainly very big clubs, and two of the biggest clubs in the world, Rangers and Liverpool.
And Benfica.
And Benfica. So what would you be doing when you walk through the door with this Manchester United set up, given the fact that we scrutinise it within an inch of its life?
Yeah.
As a manager, when the weekend's coming along, you're looking at what you've got and you think, I can trust him, I can definitely rely on him. How many Man United players could Erik Ten Hag have said that about for the last 12 months?
I'm asking you.
I don't
Not
know.
him.
I think it's a monster job. And I think if Pep was to walk in there, and Alex Ferguson came back tomorrow. I think it's a very, very difficult job. I think they're at a point, I would say they're at a point, certainly in the history of the Premier League, this is at the lowest, they're at the lowest point now with the lowest quality group of players they've had ever in the history of the Premier League. I think it's a monumentous job.
Do you agree with that, Henry?
I would say they're probably about 6 or 7 who you think have got a chance of staying on, who are that level. But Graham, what
give
were
me
you?
6.
Okay, probably Onana. I know people have issues with him. I still think there's a player in Lisandro Martinez, if he can sort the injuries out. Rashford, if he's got the right sort of love for a slightly inhibited player. Rasmus Højlund, Garnacho. But the point I wanted to ask you, Graham, is what were you like at 39? Did you have the confidence, even if you were going into a place that was run down, whatever, like Manchester United?
At 30, I got the Liverpool job.
There you go.
So
and you
answer.
believe that you could, there you go. And you believe you could turn it around.
Big thing, and it's probably what I'm going to ask you, is Erik Ten Hag struggled in the press. He come across a lot of times.
Because he talked rubbish.
Yes, I agree.
At times.
Do you think
with
that's a
respect to him.
And he
big
spun it a lot,
angle that he's going to have
spun
to
a lot.
come over, A, confident, but B, getting fans on side and media on side straight away? Is that a big hurdle?
Jose wrote this book and he said the match starts in the press conference. And I know that was Jose with his mind games and playing and sort of sending messages out to referees, his own players, the opposition, whatever. But Amorim is brilliant with the press. But
Henry,
I know it's not all about the press.
It's easy to be nice with the press. As a manager, you're 2 people. He's known nothing but winning. Is it 9 games, 9 wins, 30 odds scored, 3 conceded? It's easy, and I guarantee you, Slot has been now on 10 out of 10 so far this season. But you will see another Slot.
Sure.
You know, when you're winning, you're everyone's friend. You're an open book. When you're losing, you're suspicious of everything.
But Ten Hag had very little support. Say what you like about the media. If he's trying to get messages through us to the supporters, Ten Hag couldn't do it. Amorim is better at doing that. Arne Slot, because of his English, because of his character.
But it's easy when you're winning.
But it's interesting, given the fact that we're analysing him, to pare it back a second and look at the failings of Ten Hag, because that's what he's inheriting. He's inheriting the ruins of the castle that Ten Hag did or didn't build. And it's you wrote this, Henry, in August 22nd, or August 2022, when he first came in. It's clear that the squad needs a substantial overhaul. And the real question is whether the club's owners, the Glazers, will give Ten Hag the control and resources needed to effect it. Ten Hag is a fine manager, but if he's to transform Manchester United, he needs the Glazers to help him do it. Well, he had plenty of money. So based upon your assessment, and you're now being quite vociferous about your assessment of the new guy coming in, what went wrong?
Toward Ten Hag, as he came in, he got a good reputation, similar to with Amorim coming in now. The issue has always been with the Glazers, because the Glazers are not simply about giving money. By the way, it's not their money; it's the fans' money. But the problem
how
that
is
he
it
was
the Glazers?
No, but of course it's the Glazers.
How is it the Glazers?
Have you been watching Manchester United?
How is it
for the
how
last
are they
few
a
years?
problem?
So I've been covering them since 2005, when they went and had that nice tea with the FA. There's no leadership at that club, whether it's in the dressing room, whether it's in the dugout, whether it's in the boardroom. The Glazers, it was a different era. INEOS, and while I'll give INEOS a little bit of slack because they're trying to run the football operation. The Glazers just sat in the Everglades and counted the money. There was no leadership.
They made a fortune available
as an owner.
So let me get
They
this.
made a fortune available to the manager.
So let me get this right. Football managers who like to be an island, who want to work in their own space, don't like to have reins put on them, don't like interference, don't like owner's opinion. I've got all of that.
Sound like the perfect owners to me.
But
If I was managing the club.
say that. I've got all of that with the Glazers and a big bag of money, and you're seriously saying to me, the lack of direction from a CEO, who most of the time is an administrator for the money, which is the owners, and the Glazers is the reasons why Ten Hag was unable to produce an identity of a team when he had a free hand to buy who he wanted, when he wanted. That's madness.
No, I agree with the issues with Ten Hag, but there's a broader
that's what you just
issue.
said.
But there's a broader issue here. Anyone who's been following Manchester United will know the issues with the Glazers and the culture of money ahead of football that grew up there. And Manchester United
But they spent
became
it like
a
drunken
mega store
sailors.
with a football pitch.
I hear you, but they spent it like drunken
Henry,
sailors. It didn't take it away from the football
Henry,
operation.
that
They took
sounds
it
like the
both ends.
perfect scenario for me. If I'm a manager and someone over there, 3,000 miles away, living in
Let's you get on with it. Let's you get on with
We're
it.
just going to keep giving you money to spend. It's all down to what you do with that money. We're just going to be facilitators. You have the money. You spend and get us back to the top. It's a dream job.
But there was no football structure around him.
So it comes back.
He absolutely needed it. I agree. Ten Hag had his weaknesses. He made mistakes. Some of the recruitment, but a lot of the players initially he didn't buy. The Glazers aren't the golden owners you think they are.
I don't think they're golden owners at all. I think from a business point of view, they created a deal from heaven. From a football point of view, it probably was a deal from hell.
Here's a point that no one can dispute. Whether the infrastructure there was not, he was left to get on with it, right, and get the playing style and the playing team sorted. Nothing has moved forward.
No, I agree
in
with
that time.
that.
There's no style of play. There's no players that he's improved, and there's no one that's come in and gone, we want to take those.
And but because there was no football structure, he was effectively inheriting 4 previous managers' squads.
Yes,
and coming back to your point about Amorim,
$500 million.
He's had 5 transfer windows to figure that out.
Yeah.
So that's where, in my point of view, he loses that argument because you've had opportunity to move on.
Team.
You've brought people in. This summer, you've got 5 Ajax players that you've worked with before that you went out and got with.
Yeah.
So while I take your point, I disagree with it because you've had 5 windows to move that on. If the infrastructure is not there, it took 2.5 years to figure that out.
Well, he was praised for the sort of the first year. Absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
The 200 million that he spent, Graham's point was completely right. He was undermined by the owners in the summer, and so the players that were coming in, the other players presumably looked at the players coming in and thought, well, he's bought them in, and he's not going to last anyway. I agree with you. His recruitment and his obsession with the Dutch league was wrong. But I think if there had been a football man around, Arsene Wenger had David Dean. Okay, you might say he's not a football man, but he knew the world. He knew the contracts. He knew the agents. He could get things done.
A football man, don't we?
Well, Arsene is a football man. But the fact is that there has been a vacuum at the heart of Manchester United, and the Glazers are responsible for that.
You're saying that the infrastructure's not right. These people are
Proved that it's still not
still
right.
proving it, and it's still not right. Why would this guy now walk in and it should change if the infrastructure's still a little bit out?
I do get your point, but it comes back to confident 39-year-olds, and it comes back to the fact that Manchester United is still a huge job and a huge law. And you talk to people in Portugal, Portuguese journalists, and they said they're still surprised that he's still there.
What's the infrastructure? I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent. But what's the infrastructure like at Aston Villa?
Well,
because we're making so much stock of what Ten Hag didn't have in terms of the support structure around him. And I'm trying to get to the idea, because once upon a time we don't want to have a consultation with people who want to buy the players that we want to be able to buy. Now it's a case of we must have consultation, otherwise we'll buy the wrong players. And I'm trying to work out why you think it was so rigged against Ten Hag in the outcomes.
Only because of the Glazers vacuum. Coming back to your point about Unai Emery, which is completely right.
You've been hanging around with Gary Neville too much.
He overlaps too much for me.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. No, but coming back to Unai Emery, you're completely right. He is very much the Sun King at Aston Villa. Things do revolve around him, but he has appointed a football structure effectively in place.
So that's Ten Hag's failings then, isn't it? Not Glazers.
Yeah, but hold on. Look at the players. How many close players did he know?
So Emery has appointed a football structure around him, is what you just said.
I think that Emery's got brighter owners.
I think
in terms of the Glazers,
in terms of football operations,
I would say that you have to give INEOS a chance.
There's more than that,
and particularly with the appointment of Amorim.
We've got a landscape of managers that are going to be. I don't think they're going to be spending much time looking across at Manchester United, but notwithstanding that, they do. Jurgen Klopp talked about Man United being better when Ralph Rangnick came in. That proved to be wrong. But you've got the Marescos, you've got the Emerys, you've got Pep Guardiola, you've got Slot. You've now got a guy that's coming in from, and they're dominating the Portuguese league right now. 27 points from 9 games, 30 goals, 2 goals conceded, and they're doing well in Europe. So when they look across at United, what do you think those guys are going to think about? I mean, Maresca might be a false economy because he's just arrived in the door and finding his feet at a club that's been in disarray for some time. The other guys I've mentioned, what do you think they're going to make of this appointment? Or what do you think their reaction to it's going to be, if any?
I imagine Chelsea would be disappointed that Ten Hag's not still in charge because they think they probably have had a better,
they'll get a bounce of some sort.
They will get a bounce.
All right. They'll get a bounce with Van Nistelrooy.
I know it won't cause them any sleepless nights.
Yeah, but to answer your question, I don't think any of the bigger teams... They're not
going to be knocking on.
No, not at the moment. They're going to be looking to go, right, what does he do over the short term? What does he do in the transfer market in January? And then probably start judging him next year.
As a player, did you ever look at yourself after a manager had gone?
Absolutely.
You had
Absolutely.
20 opportunities to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
He did nothing but look at himself.
Don't entertain it.
18.
Listen, it was 17. The
It's
18th
only 17.
The 18th one got rid of me, so he won. No, but no, of course you do. But we're footballers, and he doesn't like to be. But it's never our fault. It's always somebody else's fault. We point outwardly. But when someone gets sacked, you do start thinking, oh, what can we do? What can we do more? And then to the bounce, when a new manager comes in, everyone trains better. Everyone starts doing things better, and you just try and show the best version of yourself.
In the dressing room, when someone's gone, there would be a percentage of players going, I'm glad he's gone.
Absolutely.
He was hopeless.
And
why is he? Well, he wasn't picking me every week.
A big conversation that I think would be happening now between some of the players would be, why did we wait so long?
Yeah.
Poch has gone over there. Tuchel's gone there. Like Klopp's gone there.
Well, I certainly don't think those sorts of answers should be thinking that.
No, but it's the conversations
they
that
should
happen.
be in the same cart.
Absolutely.
I do think that in the owner stakes, I think they made a mistake in the summer, but I'm encouraged by the thinking of moving quickly, of exacting an outcome, not pissballing around. They pissballed around over Dan Ashworth, arguing about 20
Do you think
million
it's been
quid.
quickly? I think they've been in this year for a long time.
No, since they've sacked him.
No, since they made the
quickly.
decision.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that would have all
somebody
been
else.
teed up.
Sure,
You know how
but
it works.
listen, the previous structure enabled Ralph Rangnick to come in, and I thought, and a lot of people thought that Rangnick might do something meaningful, but it was left up in the air. There was no commitment to him. He was supposed to be the director or the technical director. He came in to be able to facilitate a solution in the short term. No one quite knew what he really was. There was a perception of what he was. This is at least definite leadership. It's basically out you, in you. 10 million quid for you, away you go. We've got 29 games to fix this season,
I would argue
and we've got
that,
a
Simon.
European competition.
I think they've only been working on that for the last couple of months, the way the season's panned out for them.
You think so?
Yeah, I think, he didn't lose his job because he lost at West Ham at the weekend. This is over the last couple of years, but they would have been thinking a month ago, 2 months ago.
It's any faith we
I've had the
had.
call. If we get rid of him, would you? The conversation would have. It would have happened.
Yeah, you're possibly right. When we now know that this is moving along at a rate of knots, and so it should be. All they've got to do, they've agreed the compensation, they've agreed the salary, they've just got to paper it now in terms of contractually, and he'll be in the door.
As a former owner, would you like the new manager coming in to have someone who has alongside him someone who's played for the club, whether it's a Darren Fletcher, whether it's a...
I always did, yeah. But I forced it upon managers. I had Steve Kemba, and so I forced it upon Trevor. And I forced it upon Steve Bruce, and it worked well with Steve Bruce, and it didn't work well with Trevor. I mean, ultimately, it depends upon the conditions. We know, rumour has it, this fella wants an entourage. And that was one of the reasons why West Ham were turned off, because Sullivan didn't want that big bag of cash to have to go on an entourage with a framework that was probably already set up. It'll be interesting, because I think the only way that I think the culture of the player that are there is... They'll be put on notice, these players. There's a new sheriff in town. And so you'll see a different reaction. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a result on Sunday of some shape or form. I wouldn't be surprised if they get something out of the game, whether it's a point or whether it's a win. Chelsea are in decent nick, but the players' approach, which will be short term, will change. Absolutely. And then it's up to him to make it long term by the manner in which he communicates with them and holds their attention. And that'll be the fascinating part, because all of the world's media are going to be descending upon this fella. And the challenges that he has, whether he is the adrenaline, charisma based, got the chops to do it fella, are going to be seen relatively quickly.
Is English good?
Yeah.
That's what he was saying.
Good. Yeah.
Fascinating. That's all for this week's 3 Up Front. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, or follow us where you get your podcasts. And we'll see you next time we're out.
This has been 3 Up Front, brought to you by William Hill.
Subscribe to the channel for weekly episodes.
And don't forget to go back for some of my Upfront episodes. Not bad, if I do say so myself.
18 plus, please gamble responsibly.